Hey, Justin.
Hey, Brian. All right. Thank you for doing this interview.
Sure, no problem.
My name is Justin Younts, and yeah, so I'm just going to talk about your background a little bit, and then I want to talk about what's going on with Raw.
Cool. Yeah.
So let's start off with Raw. What did you think of Raw?
It was an interesting show this week, just from the standpoint that they did the superstar shakeup, so we got to see some new talents go to Raw, some new talents go to SmackDown, and I really think now the way that they've got it set up is, so Raw's going to be a little bit more of the sports entertainment style when it comes to WWE, a little bit more storylines and whatnot. And I really feel like when you look at the SmackDown roster now, if you really like wrestling, if you like the in-ring action, that's where a lot of the really good workers are at.
No, I agree. But man, what they did with Braun Strowman, that was that designed to make him a face? Because it's like he just basically turned total babyface in that.
It really feels that way because the way that fans were chanting against Roman. I mean, what was the one point? Yeah, the "You deserve it" chants, which are hilarious. I mean, I've never seen somebody like do that much damage to somebody else and fans just cheering them for it.
He's being put in the paramedics and they're going, no, goodbye.
Well, and I just love the whole thing. Like, he beats him up backstage, and then we're seeing Braun, we're seeing Roman on the stretcher, and here comes Braun. He goes, "I'm not done yet," and
that was the funniest thing. Yeah.
Throws him off the loading dock or whatever, and then we're like, "All right, that's it." And then, in the back of your mind, you're like, "Man, wouldn't it be funny if he showed up again?"
Yeah,
and then
he shows up again.
"I'm not done yet." He goes into the ambulance and he pummels him some more, and then flips over the ambulance. That's unbelievable.
I mean, it reminded me so much of when Austin took out Brett. That segment, and just like.
Well, remember all those backstage things that they used to do during the Attitude Era? Like, you had was it Stone Cold Steve Austin that one time got into the big monster truck and he ran over the Rock's limo?
Yeah, that was great.
It's like these over-the-top things, and that's what this was. I mean, this was like one of these over-the-top kind of things. We have never seen anything like this, or we haven't seen in a long time.
No, and here's what I'm starting to see with Braun Strowman is he's really getting over organically.
Yes, and that's what fans appreciate, man. And I think that's the difference between himself and Roman, is that, with Braun, like, a lot of times we don't always get into these monsters these days. We care a little bit more about, like, what's the personality or how good is the guy in the ring. And, Braun is still, very inexperienced when it comes to that. But they positioned him in a way where he looks great. He looks like a monster. Yeah. And it has been an organic thing.
And he hasn't, and it's not like they shoved him down our throats and then just stopped. They did him little by little in little increments, and now it's like he's really starting to get ready to take off, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. He's so unique in that he is this monster, but they've protected him. They've made him look like a monster all the time. He's not a guy that goes in the ring and he's trying to do, these. He's not trying to do flips. He's not trying to do all these incredible things that other guys can do. And he's super athletic. If you've seen,
that match with Big Show and the match with Roman Reigns. I mean,
right?
He showed he could move. He showed he could work a good match. He wasn't.
I know. And the crazy thing is that I think if you count all the matches this guy has had, I mean, even with house shows, he's probably only had 50 matches, 50, 60 matches, something like that. I mean, when he got called up. When he showed up on Raw, I think he'd only had 10 matches to that point in his career.
Yeah, no, he was that's what I read. Yeah, they just pushed him right up there, and then he showed up with the black mask, and it's okay, here he is. But he was he obviously was not ready at that time, because they did that thing in at the Royal Rumble where he was with Brock, and Brock stiffed the hell out of him, and he just went down, and it was just he's not ready yet. I think he was supposed to go against Brock.
I think he's going to. I think it's going to be at SummerSlam. Yeah. I think that now that it's just they got to figure out what they're going to do with Roman between now and then. So we expect Roman and Braun to have another match coming up here in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm thinking last man standing, maybe.
Yeah, either the last man standing or a stretcher match, something like that, where Braun could lose, but in the end it wouldn't really hurt him. It's not like he's taking a pinfall. He's not submitting, anything like that.
I really think they need to start looking at him to get the win over Brock, as opposed to doing what they want to do, which is go to Mania and have Roman beat Brock. It's just like, I think Braun would get way more of a rub off of beating Brock than Roman.
Oh, absolutely he would. I think it just goes down to when you have somebody in that position. I think that there's more to just being the champion when it comes to Roman, the way they look at, because they look at Roman as an ambassador for the company.
Yeah.
He looks the part. He can talk the part. He can be very corporate. Braun is for all the talent that knows Braun, they love the guy. They're like, he's just a fun-loving, big, cuddly guy. Thank God. But but I think when you look at him, people go, oh, that's like this old school or traditional wrestler. He's not like the guy that you want to put on the Today Show or Good Morning America, just because the way that he looks. So some of that goes into that. I mean, the thing is, there's a lot of time between WrestleMania next year and where we are now, and I know that that's already been like thrown out there. Is they want to do Roman against Brock next year at Mania? Who knows? I mean, that could be the plan right now, but man, there's a lot that can happen between now and then.
I think though, I mean, if we look at history, I mean, they lose their top guy, and then they start trying to find a guy that looks exactly like him, and then they got Austin, and then now they have Cena, and it's like they're trying to make the next Cena, and it's like, just let the next top guy show up organically, because it will show up.
Yeah, I totally agree. The second that you start to manufacture a guy, that's when the crowd will turn against him, because they're like, they're not earning it. We haven't given them a stamp of approval yet. And until they do something like really cool that they like, then people are going to be like, no, he's not our guy yet. And they're going to voice their disapproval. And we've seen that over and over again with Roman. Roman is super talented. I mean, he's a really good wrestler.
No, he is.
I think he can actually talk really good too. He's very charismatic. If you've ever heard him talk like in interviews or other functions.
Yes.
I just don't think that they've really captured his character very well when they've given him lines.
I think that's the problem. Everything is so scripted because they want to control everything. It's like, let him go out there. When he did the thing where he was just putting his the mic to his lips and they were just chanting, every obscenity they could think of at him, delete, delete, delete. I mean,
I was there. I was in the building, man.
I mean, that was
crazy.
An amazing thing. Yeah. So what was that like in the building?
Oh, that was insane, because like we were wondering like how long was this going to go on?
So like 10 minutes.
Would it go on 12 minutes, something like that? So I mean, even before the show started, people were chanting, against Roman. I mean, it started even before they turned the cameras on.
And that's what I think they're doing.
A
dissatisfaction with that, because it's just like he's got like that NWO heat that just like he can just walk out there and people hate him, and they're doing everything they can to go no, like him. It's like, let's see him get booed a little bit, and then he'll probably be able to turn the fans, because he'll be really good as a heel,
right?
And he'll be the guy they want, like Rock.
Well, the thing is, right now, the WWE is in this mode where they don't really, as much as they will say, we don't care how people get, what reactions people get. I mean, they do care to some extent, but the most important thing to them is boo or cheer. Okay, it's up to you. That's their little motto kind of thing right now is, you are the WWE universe, and we want our universe to be loud. We want you to react. And they're not as much worried about boos and cheers as long as you get a reaction. And we've seen this a lot with John Cena, where Cena's like, the ultimate babyface in some ways in that company. But he gets plenty of boos, Yeah. But it's the same thing with Roman. They're like, hey, you know what? He's getting booed out of the building, but he's getting a reaction, which is better than get some of these guys out there and they're getting nothing.
Yeah. Is they're just going to keep... I mean, I see what they're saying with that, but it's just like... It's indicative of the booking that they're doing.
Yes.
That he's being booed.
And I know we're in a different era, where it's not the traditional good guy versus bad guy kind of thing, but there's still some extent to that does matter. Yeah. And people like to pick sides.
Yeah. I mean, like, one of the things I heard was, like, they were like, well, Daniel Bryan, he probably would have eventually gotten booed. And I'm like, no, not necessarily. I mean,
not necessarily. And that's the thing that happened with Roman. I mean, Roman had 2 big strikes against him. Yeah. Number one, he's not Daniel Bryan. That was the biggest thing. And there's nothing he can do about that. He's not Daniel Bryan, okay? Yeah. So at the time that he was the hand-picked guy, it was also at the time when Daniel Bryan was the hot guy and the it guy by the crowd. And then the other thing was, too, remember when he got injured? And this was, what, 2.5, 3 years ago?
Like right before the Rumble, he came out at that, what was it? I think it was called TLC.
Right. So when he got injured, and remember he did like some of those promos where he was sitting in the back or whatever, and they were like the most scripted, everything but what Roman Reigns would really say as a person kind of thing. And everybody could just tell he was coming off very wooden. It wasn't really him. I mean, that really hurt him. And you put that with the whole I'm not Daniel Bryan thing, and that really took him off track. He wins the Royal Rumble when people thought it was going to be Daniel Bryan, and people just jumped on him. They've stayed on him ever since.
It was a horrible way to put him in that position, and then they kept it going by having him. They should have made it a three-way to alleviate some of those boos, because then I don't think it would be so. It would have carried so far the Roman hate that was happening.
Well, the other thing I think if I remember right, that they did was, remember they did a Roman Reigns Daniel Bryan match.
Yes.
And Roman won. But it still ended up with Daniel Bryan being the guy that was in the main event, because the crowd just wanted it so much. Yeah. And that's one of the times where WWE says, hey, we listen to our audience. And that was one of the times that they actually did. And they did in a big way. Like they finally said, all right, there's so much support. We can't deny everybody now, and we have to do the Daniel Bryan story. We have to give him a big role at WrestleMania, and we have to have him win it, which they did.
Yeah, no, that was an amazing thing that they changed their plans with that, because it was.
They don't always do that. I mean, if you go back, I remember there was a time. What was this? Probably like 10 years ago when Jeff Hardy was in the company, and remember Jeff Hardy was having like these amazing matches with Umaga. And this was like around December, January. Yeah, like he had these great matches, and he was like so hot, and everybody's
like
losing.
It was designed to get Umaga over, and
right,
he did the exact opposite.
Yeah, and people got behind him, and it was so hot. They're like, man, and remember Randy Orton was the champion, and everybody's like, well, Orton's going to be the champion going into Mania, and we thought, well, this is so hot, they need to adjust on the fly, and they did a match at the Rumble that year, and Orton against Jeff Hardy. We wondered, okay, is Jeff going to win? Here, is he going to be the champion? And they didn't do it, and they stayed with Orton. And everybody's like, wow, they missed the boat on that. And then right before WrestleMania, Jeff Hardy failed a wellness policy.
Yeah, I know, it's a smart move.
It turned out to be a smart move.
But at the end of the year, he ended up winning the thing. He just kept chasing it. It was an amazing thing. I want to talk about Seth a little bit. Seth Rollins. I don't know what they're doing with him. It feels like he's not organic. It just kind of feels stifled a little bit.
A little, yeah. I think they missed out on an opportunity. When he came back from the injury, that's when I thought he really should have been a big baby face. Like, you had the crowd behind him. He overcame this tremendous injury, and to have him be able to come back, you had this opportunity. And instead, they had him be a heel right off the bat. And then they decided, okay, a few months later, let's try to turn him. And it just hasn't been as smooth as everybody thought. It's been pretty clunky.
No, and I thought the beating Triple H was going to do it, but the way they kind of did it was, I don't know. I don't think it really got him over. It kind of made him look weak compared to him. I know he got the win, but it was kind of like, who cares?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I know they were trying to play up the whole, not only did he win, but he did it with only, with an injury. He still got the bum knee and whatnot. But it's all about, the promos that get wrapped around that. And even the promo that he did, like, the following night and since. I understand he's playing the babyface role, but it just doesn't feel natural yet. It's coming along, and the crowds are kind of starting to get behind him, but it's still got... There's still ways to go behind it.
I think part of it is he's being scripted. I was watching Raw, and I'm just like, he's reading from a script.
Oh, absolutely. And there's very few guys that don't get scripted. And I really wish they would go, and I understand they can't do this to everybody, but with some of these guys that are more experienced that have been around, just say, we trust you. Let's give you the bullet points, and you go out and say it in your voice, because nobody's going to know your voice better than the performer itself. There are going to be some people that are experienced and still need some help. There's going to be some newer guys there that they definitely want to script. They just don't, they don't have that level of trust with them yet. And I'm not saying that there aren't certain lines and certain points that need to be scripted. They say, hey, this line specifically, we want you to say, these are the points for it. But I wish they would go to that more often and just say, okay, make sure you get these 3 points across. You've got, 4 minutes to do it, and go out there and do it in the way that you feel is best, in your voice.
And also, I feel like they need to kind of take what the UFC does and not show the top guys as many times as they're doing.
Yeah, that's the problem with as much programming as they have now. I mean, that's the difficulty when you're doing 5 minutes or 5 hours of TV between Raw and SmackDown, and then you're doing, sometimes you're doing 2 pay-per-views per month.
Yeah, I know. I think that's the problem, but I mean, they're not.
That's why Brock Lesnar's so special, I think. Because not only is he unique, but we don't see him all the time. And that's difficult to do when you have that much programming and you want to keep a major star off, especially when they're the champion, which now they're in this little conundrum with Brock, because we had always heard that he was going to be more active in this coming year, and maybe he is, but he's not going to play the next pay-per-view.
I know, so it's like, I don't know, but I think they need to learn from that and go, well, this is really working with Brock and Goldberg. Let's see what we can do with our main roster. Instead of just them always being special, they need to start learning what made those guys special and take that to the other guys. Because
I totally agree.
I mean, feel special.
Well, NXT has changed a little bit, probably over the last 7 or 8 months. But prior to that, I mean, you looked at the booking of NXT and just kind of how everything was slowed down to make everybody kind of really feel important. And it's different because it's only an hour a week. It's not like Raw where there's 3 hours a week that you have to fill. But when they worked with that, they could really make the champion feel really special. Champion didn't have to be on every week.
Yeah.
They only did 4 big specials a year. So, it's a different game that they're playing there, but you saw kind of the format. It's just trying to figure out how to do that when you have this obligation of 3 hours of Raw every week and a pay-per-view per month.
I think what they need to do is make all the belts feel more important. Or championships. The championships all mean something so that they can headline, instead of just being throwaway titles that just like. And I think that goes back to wins and losses need to matter, and they so lost that.
I know, and that's the thing. We always talk about this 50-50 booking. Okay, yes. Somebody got a big win, but then they get a loss. And you know what? That's not the way that you get guys over to make them feel special. Is guys need to get important wins. There's going to be times when you're going to need to lose, but there's definitely times when you need to win. And when it comes to the titles, I know that they look at them a lot as, okay, they're just these props or whatever. But you know what? When the bottom line is that you're in a ring and you guys are having a physical match, you're doing it either for a personal grudge, or you're doing it to win a title. And that means this title should be important, and it's a ready-made way to put together a feud between 2 different guys. You can use that to your advantage and make it feel important. I mean, it's still somewhat important to have a title, but it doesn't feel as important as it could be.
Yeah. I wanted to get a little bit of background on you a little bit. So, where are you from?
Well, I live here in Orlando.
Yeah.
And I'm originally from Illinois, but I've been down here for about 35 years now.
Wow, cool. Because I saw that your show, it started really at the height of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, back in August of 1998, we started doing Between the Ropes on terrestrial radio here in Orlando. And it was funny because so what had happened was we got a new program director for the radio station. It was somebody else that got promoted. And so we already knew each other. Yeah. And I had been working there for a while, just trying to pay my dues and whatnot. And he said, if anybody has an idea for a new show, please let me know, put together a demo, and we'll consider it. And I had an idea for doing a wrestling show. I told him, he said, do the demo, and we did it. And next thing you know, he said, okay, I'm going to give you a time slot, but you're going to be on it's like Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock, and you could be preempted by other programming sometimes, or you have to go on even later. And I said, well, I'll take it. And we took it, and we just ran with it. And next thing you know, we changed. We actually changed nights a couple of times, but we finally settled on Wednesday nights, and we got an extra hour. We were doing 2 hours a week, and it worked out great. I mean, we were on terrestrial radio for over a decade, and then we just transitioned over to podcasts.
Yeah, podcast. That's the thing.
Yeah.
What'd you think of Nakamura last night with Ziggler?
I love Shinsuke. He's probably my favorite performer in all of WWE. And I mean, this guy, just the amount of charisma that he has, even just walking down to the ring, it's incredible. There's a special atmosphere when Shinsuke Nakamura comes out, and you hear that music. You look at what they did even during his SmackDown debut the previous week, where he had the violinist out there.
Were you there for that?
I was there for that as well.
No,
it was. I was sitting in seats. I didn't even notice it at first because they had the lights out everywhere, except in the ring. And the Miz was talking with Maurice, and a friend of mine just kind of nudges me and goes, "Why is there a guy standing on the ramp?" And I look over and I go, "Oh, I know what that is," because we had seen that guy before in NXT, do an entrance for Nakamura there. So I mean, that the music and the presentation, it goes so far when it helps these guys. Nakamura's already a special talent, but that just sends it to another level. And there's a lot of people in WWE that might not even know who Shinsuke Nakamura is from his days over in Japan or even with NXT, but when you see that special presentation, there is something about this guy. There's something big, there's something important, something special about him, and we've seen that over the first 2 weeks, and I'm going to be very curious to see what happens with them going forward.
Speaking of New Japan, did you see Shibata and Okada?
That was a crazy match. That headbutt, okay. Let me tell you something. I understand they work a stiff style, but that headbutt to me is unneeded. That is unnecessary because, to me, yes, you work a stiff style and you're going to be kicking guys and hitting guys, but to do a flat-out headbutt like that, to where one guy gets busted open and you have to pause the match because of the severity of it.
When I watched that match, I was oh my, I just kept going, ooh,
right.
Most
you
matches
wincing.
You don't do that. But
that headbutt to me was just a little bit too much. I'm like, there's a reason why it's all work, because you try to protect one another, and there's certain things you can't totally protect, but I like you do a work headbutt. Let's just do that.
He is he likes to work that stiff style. Even at Wrestle Kingdom, it was even those forearms, just hitting him in the head. I was just like, I mean, he fell down one of those times, Okada, and it was just like, wow, ooh.
But you look at the two big matches that he's had this year between him. You go back to Wrestle Kingdom with Kenny Omega and this one, and you look at some of the spots that they've done on that. It's like crazy. I mean, they did that dragon suplex off the top rope during Wrestle Kingdom. It's just like they're setting it up, and you're like, they're not going to do this. Somebody's going to slip out of it. Next thing you know, they do it, and you're like, jeez, what the hell is going on here, man? It's crazy stuff. I mean, thank God they're okay off of that. I'm just not a big fan of headbutts. What we know with head trauma and everything,
especially with what we know about concussions. No,
let's stay away from that.
He doesn't seem like the type of guy that you go up to and say, "We're going to get rid of the headbutt." He seems like he'd do it anyways.
No, probably not.
What did you? So, what do you think about the big story now with Mauro Ranallo and JBL?
We've always heard stories about the environment in WWE. There's plenty of that goes on. And it really sucks, quite honestly, because I think Mauro is a really good guy, and he's especially a very talented broadcaster. And you never know, unfortunately, what's going to really affect him and he's been very vocal about this, that he, suffers from bipolar disorder. And obviously something got to him. I think we believe what it is, and that was when JBL went on to Bring It to the Table show, and was talking about how Mauro acknowledged that he won the Announcer of the Year award from the Wrestling Observer, and JBL went off on that. And I don't know if there was anything more to it, like did JBL go up to him after a show or something like that, but obviously it affected Mauro, and and next thing you know, the guy's off TV. He's been off for a month. Now he's not going back. You wonder what other instance could have possibly happened.
Been at Mania. I mean,
Yeah, and that was a big thing. I mean, this is Mauro Ranallo's dream job was to be in WWE. He always dreamed of it since he got into broadcasting when he was 15 years old, and
No,
and then not seeing there,
it's
and
horrible that.
his contract's going to expire in August, and he's not coming back. I mean, he's done, and it just stinks that it's not just JBL. The culture has definitely changed within WWE. It's not what it once was, but it's still not there yet when it comes to a certain atmosphere of, boys will be boys, where there are some fun and playful things. And it's not like guys are going into the locker room and cutting up everybody's clothes like they used to, but there still are some tactics that need to be weeded out.
Like the Justin Roberts book, he revealed, they were like, JBL was telling people to steal his passport, and I'm just like, that's like, okay, no.
That's uncalled for, man. I mean, that's
He's
not
be
needed.
stuck in that country, and then what's Vince gonna be like? Well, I'm gonna have to fire you because you didn't show up for work. Oh, I don't have a passport, Vince. It's
right. I know people have been asking me, like, okay, what kind of punishment is there going to be for JBL? And my answer is none, because we hear about all these different stories, but there still hasn't been anything concrete. Plus, there's been no major sponsors that have pulled out. And if WWE were to, say, switch brands for JBL or demote him, it just brings more attention to the situation. So I think they're just like, you know what? Maybe they talked to him. Maybe they said, hey, you know what? The certain atmosphere, whatever, cut it out. We can't do this. Everybody's got to lay low for a while, but they're not going to try to draw any more attention to it. And I don't think anything's going to happen to him.
That's just horrible. I mean, they've got all these.
One. I mean, hey, Vince McMahon has fostered this environment. I think Vince has done a lot of great things, but at the same time, there is that boys will be boys mentality where they take it too far, and it's got to start with him, where things have to change and it needs to trickle down.
Jim Ross, he was subjected to that all the time, and I think Paul Bearer told a story about, they were like weighing everybody in the locker room, and he's like, look, I'm not getting on that scale to be weighed and read my number in front of everybody. I'm not
right.
Proud of my weight, but I mean, those are the little things they would do.
I mean, look what happened to Charles Robinson. I mean, luckily Charles has a good sense of humor about it, but I mean, they stripped him down and taped him to a chair and then rolled him out down the ramp before a show one time.
I didn't hear about that.
That has happened before too. Yeah.
Oh, that needs to stop, because I mean, they got all these be a star campaigns and stuff, and don't smoke and stuff, and then they got JBL out there bullying Mauro Ranallo, who is a great announcer, and he was sadly missed because we needed him at Mania. It's like he adds something to it.
I agree. I mean, he's so passionate about what he does, and to not have that, it sucks. It sucks.
All right, well, we're getting to the end of the interview here. I wanted to ask you, though, I mean, you've interviewed so many people. Who would you say is your favorite interview?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I've been lucky enough to speak with a lot of people. It was, what? Last year I got to talk to Vince McMahon. I actually got to sit down with Vince McMahon for about 20 minutes, which was kind of crazy to say the least. And it was great. I mean, I know some people wondered, like, what was his mentality going to be, or get my face or anything, and everything was great. There's a lot of different guys that are out there that just are just so intelligent about the business, and they'll open up, which I really appreciate. I always give a lot of credit to Chris Jericho for a lot of my success, because he was one of the first big names we ever got to speak with.
Yeah,
and Chris is always great.
After his contract expired.
We talked to him before he joined WWE, and that really helped put us on the map a lot. So Chris has always been great. I mean, you look at the roster guys. Mick Foley's always been one of my favorites as well, because Mick will talk about a lot of stuff. He's very personal, so those are two of my favorites. But I mean, there's a lot of guys I really enjoy having a good conversation with.
Anyone else in the future you would like to interview that you haven't gotten to?
I've never gotten a one-on-one interview with Triple H, which I would like to do. I've been a part of conference calls with him, or got him for just a couple minutes. But I would like to get like something, like a 15, 20 minute, conversation with him sometime. I'd love to talk to Shane McMahon. I think Shane's got a lot of different things that'd be very interesting if he would be open to discussing them about, his leaving the company and now coming back, and, what kind of role he would like to be or have with the company going forward.
He seems like, though, kind of a hard interview. Like, I watched your interview with Paul Heyman, and it's just kind of like, he switches it all around so that you can't really ask him anything.
Yeah, Paul will do that though, and I mean I know Paul, so I kind of know it going into it. Like I've had a couple interviews where Paul has tried to derail it right early on, and then I've had other ones where he's been totally cool and been an open book with me. I had one. There was one I did on the phone with him a couple of years ago, where right off the bat, like the PR guy says, "Hey Brian, you're on with Paul," and Paul was like started to go into character mode, and I said, "Paul, we're not going to do that today, man.
Yeah.
Let's have a good interview." And he was like, "All right, that's fine." But Paul loves doing that. He loves playing with people. He loves playing the part. So it can be a little difficult sometimes, especially if you don't know him and he senses like, "Oh, I've got some fresh meat here that I can play with."
Yeah, no, I see him do that all the time with all these young interviewers, and I'm just like, no, this is not. What are you doing? Don't let him do that. But he's an impulsive guy.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you for doing this. I really appreciate this.
You got it. Thanks for having me, Justin.
All right. So I'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Bye.
Shit. Bye.